So a few years back, they asked a bunch of college students, would you rather lose access to your phone or lose your sense of smell? Surprisingly, or maybe not, half of the students said, you know what, who needs that sense of smell? Yeah, I want to keep my phone. Which I know some of you smarter, older, wiser guys are saying, come on, what idiot would give up one of their senses for an electronic device? I mean, our sense of smell, it's priceless, right? Well, it's not priceless if you issue disability insurance. Now, some of you guys may be saying, well, Antonio, come on, sight versus smell, that one's a no-brainer. I would never want to lose my sense of sight. I'd give up smell all day. Well, what's interesting about this is we can actually do a comparison of happiness levels when people lose their sense of sight or their sense of smell. Now, these comparisons were performed 1 year after the incident in which the subject either lost their ability to see or lost their sense of smell. With the people that had lost their ability to see, what's interesting is that their happiness levels fell dramatically after the incident, but within a year, their happiness had risen back up to where they were before the incident happened. On the other hand, the people that lost their sense of smell, initially their happiness levels dropped a bit, but over the next year, they fell dramatically. In fact, many of the individuals who lost their sense of smell within a year of the incident happening had fallen into a deep depression. In almost all these cases, it looked like the individual from the outside had pretty much fully recovered. But for them and their daily experience of life, something was wrong. Not only could they not smell things, but they couldn't taste food. Their favorite beer, their favorite wine now tasted like nothing. A medium rare or burnt steak tasted the same, like pretty much cardboard. In fact, many of these people had fallen into vices, drugs, or alcohol. In the case of my father-in-law, he became an incredibly heavy drinker, the sting and the burn of the alcohol being the only thing he could feel whenever he would ingest food. In addition, relationships became more distant. Without a sense of smell, the connection with others becomes lessened, becomes dull. Sleep can be severely affected, and something as simple as smelling yourself, knowing if you need to take a shower or wash your clothing, becomes impossible and even frustrating. Gents, the reality is scent is a lot more important than most people think. In fact, I would argue of all of your senses, it is the one that would be most missed, despite the fact that most people undervalue it. But why is this, and how can you leverage the science of scent to your advantage? So straight up, why do most people not value scent? Well, to be quite honest, of all the senses, it is the one we know the least about. Seriously, when it comes to feelings, when it comes to nerves, there's an entire field of science dedicated to that sense. When it comes to sound, that's the sense of music. Countless books, countless devices, it's integrated into our communication. You better believe that we give it time and research. Taste, that's the domain of food, of what we put into our mouths. Come on, from all the cookbooks out there, from the shows to the professionals that make this their life pursuit. Yeah, taste is covered. Sight, vision, this is the sense that probably has the most amount of research on it. From all the devices that can prove it to all the professions out there helping us see things on the other side of the universe to what's right in front of us at the age of 90. And then there is scent. Smell, the red-headed stepchild of the five senses. In fact, when you go out there and you do research on scent, you're going to find most of it is associated with taste, with food, and how scent and taste are intertwined, and you can't really have one without the other. And more about that in a few minutes. Now, gents, if you're looking to buy fragrances online, you want to make sure you get the real deal. If you're looking for niche, hard to find fragrances, then you want to get over to Max Aroma. Fragrances like M. Micallef. I've talked about the original Desire Toxic. This is the new Desire Toxic Intense. It's an aromatic, warm, spicy, green citrus fragrance that's very unique. As some of you guys know, I don't normally like a cannabis note. This thing is blended beautifully. And gents, I'm telling you, if you're looking for some of the best fragrances on the planet coming out of the Middle East, check out the Spirit of Dubai. Right here, as you can see, I've got Boz Queer, an amazing fragrance, a little bit complex, or maybe you want something slightly different, check out Abjar Bois. Absolutely beautiful packaging, absolutely beautiful bottle. And what I love about the Spirit of Dubai, these guys know how to blend notes. And on a personal note, the fragrance I'm wearing today, check out the house of Ojar, specifically Wood Whisperer. This is a woody powder amber fragrance with a really clean, woody, powdery smell that gets compliments. And besides Wood Whisperer, if I were to recommend any fragrance for a blind buy, check out M. Micallef's Red Colorado. You got the pines with the woods. It's a very simple yet complex, absolutely beautiful fragrance. And the best thing about Max Aroma is you can get samples before you buy a full-on bottle. Down in the description of today's video, I'm linking over to Max Aroma with the best deals you're going to find on the web. Now, the easiest explanation for why scent is ignored is that it's invisible. I mean, sight gets all the attention because it's front and center. It is the sense that we perceive ourselves as using almost all the time. And the other senses follow close, right? Touch, hearing, taste, and then scent, right? I mean, it's not like we're dogs or lower animals that use their sense of smell to get around, right? Well, it turns out, gents, that's a loaded question that goes back to a rumor started in 1879. So there was this French neuroanatomist named Paul Broca, and he divided animals into two categories. He made this distinction on the size of the olfactory bulb in comparison with the size of the brain. And he was also under the eye of the very watchful Catholic Church that was wanting to make sure that him and Darwin were not straying too far from their teachings. And so without any real evidence, he divided the animal kingdom into two sides. One that was lower, they relied on their sense of smell, and one that was higher, and they didn't rely on their sense of smell too much. They had to evolve. Now, no surprise where he put humans under the watchful eye of the church. But the problem with this classification is it pretty much went unchallenged for over 100 years. I mean, that makes sense, right? Human beings have evolved. We're at a higher level. Anything that uses its primal senses, like smell, to be able to make decisions, that's animalistic. That's a lower form. And hence, the sense of smell was thrown into the basement. But in the last 20 years, what have we discovered? That human beings and tons of other animals have about the same number of neurons in their olfactory bulb, about 10 million, and that despite the proportions of our olfactory bulb when compared to our main brain, our sense of smell is actually friggin' amazing. In fact, for certain trace odor molecules, human beings have a better sense of smell than rats, monkeys, and even dogs. Now, just to be clear, dogs are the king of scent and consistently rank number one when it comes to their overall olfactory abilities. But humans aren't bad. In fact, of a study of 20 different animals, humans were often in the top 5. My point is this: as human beings, we devalue our sense of smell because we are not taught how powerful and important it is. In fact, due to a cultural bias started over 150 years ago, as a society, we have discounted it. And as such, we're just now waking up to the power and influence that this invisible sense has on our well-being and abilities. Well, first up, it's the only sense that is directly connected to the brain. Now, if you're familiar with the structure of the brain, you know that pretty much all the senses go through the relay system known as the thalamus. Basically, this is the brain's processing hub, and it makes sure that the brain is not overloaded with all the information that's constantly coming our way. You see, once odor molecules enter the nose, they find their way to our olfactory receptors. These receptors then send signals to the olfactory bulb. It then processes the information and relays it directly to the areas of the brain, to include the amygdala and hippocampus. Now, again, as many of you guys know, those two areas are the parts of the brain that deal with emotion and memories. And this is where it gets interesting. Because of that direct connection, you have the ability to connect sense with memory. Sense, in a sense, become memory. They become emotion. This is unlike any of the other senses, again, that have to go through the relay system of the thalamus. They don't have that direct connection. They can't, in a sense, form that direct connection. What this does is it conditions us to recall memories based off of what we smell and the feelings we had previously when we last were exposed to that smell. Now, most scent conditioning is 100% accidental. It's you going over to your grandmother's house and just that smell of the food cooking. I know my grandmother, she came from Mexico. There were always beans on the stove, tortillas. And to this day, whenever I smell that stuff, it takes me back. On Saturdays and Sundays, she'd have menudo cooking. To this day, those scents take me back to that time and place. For some of you guys, maybe it's the smell of gasoline, oil, working with your granddad in the shop. Under the hood of that old car he taught you how to fix, you first changed the oil on. The crazy thing here is you can go years without smelling this stuff, and then you smell it once and you instantly go back. This is what's known as a Proustian moment. It was coined by the French writer Marcel Proust when he was talking about dipping cookies into tea and the smell that it gave off and how it took him back to when he was a kid. Yeah, gents, you know what I'm talking about. And if you've got a memory like that, by the way, I'd love to hear about it down in the comments below. I love hearing from you guys. I love learning from you guys. And let me know if you like videos like this, which I get a little bit deeper into the science of scent. The next thing we know is that anosmic individuals, those that have lost their sense of smell, are more likely to fall into clinical depression, social withdrawal, and reduced libido. This is based off a 2016 study in the Journal of Chemical Senses. And they looked at hundreds of individuals. And again, what they found is that the sense of smell, initially people don't notice it. It usually happens, they lose it whenever they have a concussion, an extreme head injury. Basically, the fine tissues connecting the brain and the olfactory bulb are severed. When this happens, sadly, they don't usually come back. And that person going forward just doesn't have an ability to to smell. Now, over the last few years, because of COVID, many people have lost temporarily their sense of smell. So you kind of got a taste of what it's like. But what happened here is it was your olfactory receptors in your nose. Those are the things that were actually damaged, and those replenish themselves every 30 to 60 days. So in that case, thankfully, most of you guys did not have a permanent injury, but you did lose it for a prolonged period, and you probably got to see how dreadful it is when this happens. Now, the third thing we know about scent is that it can be improved, and you can condition yourself to certain smells. Now, interestingly, a lot of research and a lot of the techniques came about after the tragedy of 9/11. Now, it's safe to say if you were in New York, if you were even close to downtown Manhattan on that tragic day, you experienced emotions and feelings that most people never go through their lives experiencing. But what's interesting that happened in that time period is the smell and the scent that permeated Lower Manhattan. Now, the reason for this unique smell is whenever the towers collapse. Now, I was just at the 9/11 memorial. It's crazy to see the composite that was formed. It wasn't like there were pieces of desks or even, sadly, bodies or anything. Everything melded into a composite because of the temperature, because of the pressure, and it created a unique smell that imprinted itself on thousands and thousands of people. And what they discovered is that even years later, people that had been at 9/11, when they were exposed to a scent that was similar to what they smelt that day, people would freak out. They would all of a sudden feel uncomfortable. They would feel trapped. They would have panic attacks. Now, to overcome this, researchers actually developed a system for people to overcome an accidentally conditioned scent like that. And in a sense, they taught people to smell again, which became very useful post 9/11 when you had a lot of people that lost their sense of smell and wanted to get it back quicker or wanted to get it back and just relearn how to smell. So yeah, if you go out there and look, there are actually now courses. There's now actually information where you can reteach yourself how to smell, which is interesting because you think about it, most people never are taught how to smell. And that takes us to the next thing that we know about scent is that there isn't a set language. When it comes to English, it's pretty messed up. It goes all over the place. If anyone knows Ukrainian or Russian or Chinese or Japanese, like those languages are a little bit more structured. English, we're all over the place. But the language of scent, guys, I'm telling you, it is friggin' crazy. You have an idea of what citrus or a lemon or a lime smells like. Guess what? I probably have a different idea in my head because we can't compare. We can't see what the other person is smelling in a sense. And because of that, and because every scent in a sense is unique, it's really difficult to have a true idea of what it is we're smelling and for two people to describe it in the same way. That's why in the world of fragrances, people are so contentious, it's so subjective, because seriously, everyone is smelling something slightly different. Now, it used to be believed that there were only 10,000 different types of scent out there, but that was a number, again, back of the envelope. Some scientists threw it out there and it was just a guess. It turns out there are probably well over 1 million different types of scent out there and counting. And guys, if you'd like to get some of the fragrances, because I'm constantly giving away fragrances in my collection, go over to school. I've got a free group. It's called the Brotherhood of Scent. Go join up. We've got some awesome guys in there that love talking fragrance. If you want to understand the basics of fragrances, I've got free classrooms over there for you. And like I said, every single week, I'm giving away fragrances from my collection so that you guys can build yours. And again, it's a great camaraderie, great group. I'm going to link to it down in the description below. And speaking of all the different types of scent out there, it turns out our memories with scents are pretty darn good. In fact, better than things we see visually. They did one study in which, people were shown a whole bunch of pictures. They only remembered 5% of what they saw. When it came to scents, people remembered 35% of what they smelled. So literally, people could remember 7 times as much of what they smelt versus what they saw. In addition, there was a study I saw the other day when they had people over the age of 65, a whole bunch of retirees, with scent diffusers in their rooms. Well, it turns out exposure to calming scents like lavender and jasmine in minute amounts throughout the night actually could improve the memory retention of these seniors. Now, how does this apply to you? Well, if you want to be remembered, if you want to be thought about when you're not around by that beautiful woman at work, well, wear a fragrance that, isn't going to overpower, isn't going to choke her out. But guess what? You walk by, you smell good. She's always noticing you because she can't not notice the guy that just smells great. And no guarantee, guys, but you just might be living rent-free in her head and increase the chances she'll say yes when you go to talk to her and ask her out. Because yes, scent does affect your perception of being attractive, of being someone she would want to get with. I mean, I'd be lying to you if you can't carry a conversation, if you don't have the courage to go up and talk to her. Doesn't matter what you're wearing, you are not going to stand a chance. But all things being equal, if you put yourself out there and you smell good, guys, you are setting yourself up for success. And the way that scent affects others, guys, guess what? It also affects you. When you select a fragrance that you like, that you feel makes you smell good. Well, guess what? You've chosen one that aligns with your natural scent, so it's going to enhance it. And basically what you've bought, what you found is liquid confidence, because every time you spray it on, every time you wear it, you feel like $1,000,000. You walk with confidence, you stand tall, and you come off because you are more confident. And with that being said, gents, now let's go out there and find your signature scent. How to do it? Guys, I got you covered. Boom. In this video right here, I break out how exactly to find your signature scent, how to smell great. Guys, I got you covered. Boom. In this video, oh yeah, right there.